You're listening to The Jacob Valk Show. He's breaking down the latest and greatest in sports as only he can. Follow him on Twitter at RealJacobValk. Here he is, Jacob Valk.
Hello, sports fans! Welcome to another edition of the Jacob Valk Show. I am Jacob Valk, and there are a couple big New York sports stories to get to. Obviously, the devastating news surrounding Luis Severino, and the Giants cut a couple of linebackers. I'll also break down Iowa versus MSU, which I nailed, by the way. I'll give you a little This Day in Sports History, and a Mount Rushmore also. But I gotta start with Luis Severino. And it is impossible to overstate the devastating impact that this has on the Yankees. Cole and Severino were supposed to be the 1-2 punch for the Yankees. They were supposed to be the Warren Spahn and Johnny Sane, the CC Sabathia and AJ Burnett, the Max Scherzer and Steven Strasburg, the Roy Halladay and Cliff Lee. Do I really need to keep going? You get the point I'm making. You know, we all knew Herman was going to be out. That's not an issue. And we all knew that Paxton had injury concerns. Okay, fine. He's only going to be out for really 2.5 months of the season. You can survive with that. Paxton isn't a world beater. He's not bad. He's just not a world beater. Severino is. You don't need me to extol his virtues. You know how good he is. And the Yankees' rotation last year was hurt immeasurably by him being out. And the Yankees this year really added 2 aces, Cole and Severino. Now, when you add Severino to Paxton and Herman, the rotation is an even bigger question mark than it was 6 months ago. Cole, Tanaka, Montgomery, Happ, and fill in the blank. You want to tell me Davy Garcia? You want to tell me Jonathan Loaisiga, Michael King, Luis Gill, an opener, whoever? Look, their rotation is better than it was 6 months ago, but it's still a huge question mark. Forget even this year. Severino is now Noah Syndergaard. You can't trust him to stay healthy. When we write Severino's name in, when it comes to pitchers that are going to pitch for the Yankees next year, how can you expect Severino to contribute? He may get hurt again. He may be a shell of his former self. He's already not a great playoff performer. This is about as devastating a blow as the Yankees could have had. Yeah, they have more marquee players like Judge and Cole. I get that. But Severino is incredibly important to the Yankees. This was a homegrown guy of theirs. They signed him when he was, I think, 16 years old. And he was a product of their developmental system. And he was shaping up to be the first pitcher that the Yankees developed to be any good as a starter for them since Andy Pettitte. Now, how can you trust him? Look, it's not Severino's fault. Or maybe it is. There are two scenarios here that could have happened. The first one is that the Yankees, for some stupid reason, waited for him to address the pain that he was experiencing when he was throwing his changeup. The second one is that Severino hit it until a week ago. If it's the latter, then Severino's an idiot. And the Yankees really can't be blamed there. You know, I'm sure they were checking up on him. I'm sure they asked how he was doing. And if he said everything's fine, they have no reason to doubt him. But if it's the former, and I think it is, shame on the New York Yankees! You knew he was going through pain and you did nothing! You thought it was just going to subside? Are you joking? This is a team that was ravaged by injuries last year. And you're going to let one of your best pitchers just walk it off? I thought you guys overhauled this with Cressy. I gotta tell you, I asked a doctor who I saw yesterday, everything's fine. I asked the doctor who I saw yesterday, would you ever wait 4 months to address something like this? And she said no. Look, I understand that it's not the Yankees' fault that he got hurt. If he was pitching through pain in the ALCS, that's the time to do it. And I can't begrudge Severino for that. I can't begrudge the Yankees for doing that. That's the time to pitch through pain. But after that, schedule an MRI and get to the bottom of this. If he needed Tommy John surgery, do it the day after the World Series. Hell, do it the day after the ALCS. Now, in addition to this year, he may miss part of next year. And here's the kicker. We'll never know if Severino exacerbated the injury to the point that he needed Tommy John surgery. It is fair to wonder if the Yankees got this checked out in, let's say, November or December, if he would have needed Tommy John surgery. Maybe he would have needed something else. These guys work out all winter. During any one of those throws, Severino could have exacerbated his injury to the point that he needed Tommy John surgery. If the Yankees were aware of this, they would have shut him down. Forget about it. Don't use your right arm for anything. But since they waited, they took the chance that the injury could have been exacerbated, and this is the result. It was a really good day for me until about 3 p.m. yesterday. It was made even worse by the Islanders losing. They played like garbage for over 2.5 periods. They came back, good for them, they got the point, okay, fine. You know what, for over 2.5 periods, they played like garbage. I don't know how to feel about that game, I really don't. But back to Severino. Well, one more thing about the Islanders. J.G. Pageau is amazing. Absolutely love him. He's already one of my favorite Islanders. Okay, now back to Severino. A friend of mine, Mark, asked me this yesterday. Will Next Man Up be as effective as it was last year? The answer is no. The Yankees got really lucky finding guys like Urshela and Tauchman. We all knew LeMahieu was talented. He doesn't count. But Urshela came out of nowhere to produce. Tauchman came out of nowhere to produce. Look, it's possible that Davy Garcia is the real deal. And I like Davy Garcia a lot. He's got a really good fastball, really good slider. He's working on a curveball, and he's working on a changeup. He'll be a good starter in this league, I think. But every young starter goes through growing pains. And the Yankees are going to throw Garcia right into the fire and expect him to produce right away. Take a look at the Yankees rotation right now, assuming it's Garcia. You've got Garrett Cole. No questions there. Masahiro Tanaka. A little inconsistent, but he's fine. I like Tanaka. Jordan Montgomery, you have no idea how he's going to do this year. This is his first full year back from Tommy John. How's he going to do? I like Montgomery. I think he'll be fine, but it's a question mark. J-Hap stinks. And God only knows how Garcia's going to do in the next level. The Yankees can't rely on next man up as much as they did last year. Now, in this case, it makes a little sense. And in certain cases, it works. But there does come a point where you need to look outside the organization for help. There are a few interesting free agents still available. And I understand that they're not going to be ready right away, but when do the Yankees first need a fifth starter? If the guy hits the ground running, there's no reason to think he can't be up by the middle of April. Those guys are Danny Salazar, Jason Vargas, and Andrew Kashner. Salazar has been bitten by the injury bug recently, but this is a guy who just 4 years ago was an all-star and looked like he was going to be a really, really good pitcher in this league for a long time. Him, Kluber, Carrasco, Clevenger. That was scary. Big reason why the Indians made the World Series that year. But he got hurt. He's only started 20 games since 2017. There's risk there. But to bring him in on a minor league deal makes perfect sense. Jason Vargas is risky. You don't know which Vargas you're going to get. Are you going to get the 2018 Jason Vargas? Or are you going to get the 2017 Jason Vargas? Even last year's Jason Vargas wasn't that bad for the Mets. Phillies, he struggled, but for the Mets, he was pretty good. Bring him in on a minor league deal. I don't mind that. You're not going to get Whitey Ford, but Vargas can at least produce and is a little more of a guarantee than any of the minor leaguers the Yankees are talking about. And Andrew Kashner, there was a report that he's being marketed as a reliever. But I'm sure he'd prefer to start, and the Yankees will give him that opportunity. Now, I've never been the biggest Kashner fan, but last year for the Orioles, he was really good. 9-3, 3.83 ERA. Yeah, he struggled in Boston, but minor league deal, it makes sense. I definitely prefer Salazar and Vargas over Kashner. Like I said, I'm not the biggest Kashner fan. But you're not going to get, Nolan Ryan at this stage. If the Yankees had been proactive here, they'd have had time to add another starter. Now, not a starter like Cole, but just an innings eater. Don't do the opener again, please. You killed the bullpen last year doing it. They were gassed by the time the ALCS rolled around. Ottavino was useless. I don't mind them giving Garcia the first crack at this, but if you're Cashman, you've got to be on the phone with Salazar, Vargas, or Cashner. And the bigger thing is, how does this affect the Yankees for their outlook for this year? I mean, I still think they're the best team in the American League. Who's beating them? They're better than the Twins. Every year the Yankees are better than the Twins. White Sox, no. Rays, no. The Astros, you can't confidently pick because you don't know how they're gonna play under this cloud. The Athletics aren't world beaters. Every year they make the playoffs and they're out in the wild card round. The Angels, maybe. They're a little like the Yankees. Great hitting. Question mark in their rotation. They just don't have the bullpen that the Yankees do. I still think the Yankees are going to win the American League, but it's not the slam dunk that it was 2 weeks ago. And the World Series, forget about it. They're not better than the Dodgers now. They're probably not even better than the Braves. They'll win the pennant, but the World Series, no. I mean, look, I understand I shouldn't be so doom and gloom. We haven't even played the season yet. A million things can happen. Maybe Mookie Betts gets hurt. Maybe Davy Garcia looks like the second coming of Whitey Ford. Whatever. I know I shouldn't be so doom and gloom, but it's tough with this. It's really, really tough to be positive in the wake of this. Moving on now to the Giants cutting Alec Ogletree and Kareem Martin. And I'll start with Martin because he's the easiest to talk about. Martin's not a bad player. He's actually been a decent player recently in the NFL. 3 of his past 4 seasons, he's been solid. Nothing wrong with him. Not great, not terrible. But last year, he got hurt and was never able to work his way back. He only played 50 snaps last year, according to Pro Football Focus. The Giants are saving a lot of money by cutting him. I have no problem with that. Alec Ogletree is probably the biggest miss that Dave Gettleman has had since being Giants GM. And he's had a lot of them. I remember when he was traded to the Giants, Giants fans were hyping him up like he was going to be the next Carl Banks. Oh, he'll be fine. He's talented. He's a good pass rusher. You know, he's a former first-round pick. He was just in a bad system. You put him with James Betcher, he'll be fine. Meanwhile, I was always skeptical about it, and I was proven right. Ogletree was nothing short of a disaster with the Giants. He's a bust. Did he have talent coming out of Georgia? Yeah, no question. And is he a good pass rusher? Yeah, he's fine there. But everything else he's terrible at. I mean, there's really no nice way to say it. Ogletree is not a good player. The sad part is there are actually some people that are saying that he can start next year for another team. No. Sign him 1 year as a backup. Maybe you put him in some sub packages, but do not have him starting. Don't give him a big contract and just hand him the starting job. That would be nothing short of criminal. These are 2 good moves by Gettleman. I'm not a big Gettleman fan, but he has $70 million to work with this year. It's going to be very interesting to see how he uses it. The biggest thing that he has to do is keep Daniel Jones upright. He's got to add a left guard, and he's got to add a center. They're in the same boat as the Jets. They think they have their franchise quarterback. Now it's just about keeping him upright. They also need to address the secondary. Their safeties were fine last year, but cornerback, oh my god, they were dreadful. Seriously, can you tell me one good cornerback that the Giants had last year? Antonio Hamilton had his moments, but he's not a world beater. Sam Beal is a waste of time. Grant Haley's a waste of time. DeAndre Baker's a bust. The Giants need to add, 3 more cornerbacks. They're going to be very, very aggressive in free agency, and I think they're going to go after Byron Jones hard. It's going to be so sweet for the Giants if they can steal Jones from the Cowboys. However, I think he's going to the Jets. At least I want him on the Jets. Please come to the Jets, Byron Jones. I'm begging you. Moving on now to Iowa versus MSU. And this game went just about as I predicted it. MSU won because they were more balanced. They have more ways to beat you than Iowa does. MSU came out flat in the first half, but then in the second half, Izzo rejiggered the game plan. He got the ball to Rocket Watts a lot more, who had the game of his life. And he got Aaron Henry more involved, who I said was going to need to step up if the Spartans were going to win this game. The Spartans only scored 27 points in the first half yesterday. They scored 51 in the second half. A masterful job of halftime adjustments by Tom Izzo. Iowa had every opportunity to win this game. Garza played great. He didn't shoot the ball well, but he still put up 20. Almost got a double-double. Nothing wrong with that. Ryan Kreiner stepped up to have a big game. He's really come on recently. And it's going to be interesting to see how he does to finish out this season. The biggest reason why Iowa lost this game was the no-show of Joe Wieskamp. Wieskamp shot 1 for 8. 0 for 5 from beyond the arc. He's got to be better than that. For Iowa to make a big run next month, Wieskamp has to step up and be the second best player for the Hawkeyes. All due respect to Kreiner, all due respect to Connor McCaffrey, who had a solid game. They're not as talented as Wieskamp. Wieskamp is a better shooter than this. I do think he'll recover, but he cannot have another game like this. All in all, I'm just glad I was right. Alright, time for this day in sports history. On this day, in 1887, I was there as a matter of fact. Well, in spirit, I think. I don't know. I feel like sometimes in a past life I was Jack the Ripper. But in any event, on this day, in 1887, Grover Cleveland Alexander was born. Now, if you don't know that name, that's okay. He pitched over 100 years ago. But the simple fact is you should know who he is. The guy has 373 wins. Alright, do I really need to say more than that? Huge reason why the Yankees lost the 1926 World Series. The guy went 2-0 in his 2 starts against the Yankees. Game 2 and Game 6. And then in Game 7 too, on no day's rest, he came in the 7th inning and pitched 2 1/3 scoreless innings. And he was actually retroactively credited with a save. Kind of interesting that baseball historians have gone back and have retroactively credited players with saves. Grover Cleveland Alexander, in his career, actually had 32 saves. If you had told him that while he was alive, he'd have looked at you like you were nuts. But I'm getting ahead of myself. He was named after the then president of the United States, Grover Cleveland. You gotta wonder why he was named after the president, but, I mean, that is something that we've seen before, and plus, he was one of 13 children, so at some point, you're running out of names. He made his major league debut in 1911, and in his rookie year, he led all of baseball in wins and shutouts. And he led the National League in complete games and innings pitched. In his rookie year, he started 37 games and went 28-13. He pitched in 48 games and pitched 367 innings. Can you imagine a player doing that now? Forget the 367 innings. That'll never happen again. But can you imagine a pitcher in his rookie year coming in and leading the National League in wins? Or the American League, for that matter? That's still a record. A modern-day record for most wins by a rookie. And he continued this dominance for really his whole Phillies career. He won the pitching Triple Crown in 1915 and 1916. That's leading the league in wins, strikeouts, and ERA. In 1917, he went 30-13 with a 1.83 ERA, and he led all of baseball with 200 strikeouts. Pretty par for the course for Alexander, but the then owner of the Phillies, William Baker, traded him to the Cubs along with his favorite catcher, Bill Killefer, for Pickles Dillhofer, we need more names like that, Mike Prendergast, and $60,000. Baker later admitted that he needed the money. Can you imagine an owner today trading his best player because he needed the money and being so transparent about it? William Baker was the Jeffrey Loria of his day. Although it almost worked out for Baker in a really morbid way, because in 1918 Alexander only pitched in 3 games, and then he got drafted to serve in World War I. And he was in France and was exposed to mustard gas, and a shell exploded near him. So he had some hearing loss, epilepsy, and shell shock. He then took up drinking a lot more than he used to. He did have some problems with alcohol, but it was manageable. After the war, he hit the bottle pretty hard. In 1920, Alexander won his last pitching Triple Crown with 27 wins, a 1.91 ERA, and 173 strikeouts. But in 1921, he fell off. Now, he was still good. 15-13, 3.39 ERA, and 77 strikeouts. Ignore the strikeouts. No one was a big strikeout pitcher back then, with the exception of Alexander. But, look, he was still good, but he wasn't great. Although he did lead the league in shutouts, even after he fell off. Just speaks to his dominance. After that, though, he really fell off. His drinking got worse, and he was becoming an issue in the clubhouse. He was sold to the Cardinals, and the manager of the Cubs, Joe McCarthy, said that if he was going to finish in last place, he finished in last place in 25. If he was going to finish in last place again in 26, he'd rather it be without him. But Alexander had some more big moments. Like I said, in 1926, in the World Series, he won games 2 and 6, and game 7, he got the save. Now, it's actually kind of funny. The night of game 6, so after game 6, before game 7, realize, no night games at that point. The night of game 6, he got drunk, and was still a little hungover when he came in game 7. He came in with the bases loaded, 2 out, Cardinals up 3-2, and Tony Lazzari was up. Alexander struck him out, and he held the Yankees scoreless for 2 more innings, and Babe Ruth ended that World Series by stupidly trying to steal second base. His 90 shutouts are a National League record, and his 373 wins are tied with Christy Mathewson for most wins in NL history. He was also a good fielding pitcher and a good hitting pitcher. He only had 25 errors, and he hit .209 with 11 homers and 163 RBIs. That's not bad. I'll take that. It's a shame that he's been lost to history. Very interesting character. Great pitcher. Happy birthday, my friend. I'll have some cake for you. I actually have some king cake in my house. It was Mardi Gras yesterday, so I did get some king cake. Maybe I'll have some today for him. Alright, here we go. Time for another Mount Rushmore. If you've been keeping score, you know that I'm up to the Baltimore Orioles. And this one was kind of easy. There were some guys who I thought about including, but I ultimately left off. Eddie Murray, Mike Mussina, Boog Powell, all really good Orioles, but not as good as these 4 guys. The correct Mount Rushmore for the Baltimore Orioles is Cal Ripken Jr., Jim Palmer, Brooks Robinson, and Dave McNally. You don't need me to extol Ripken's virtues. You all know about the consecutive game streak. Although, if you go back and look, he had a lot of average seasons during that streak. Now, he was a 19-time All-Star, over 3,000 hits. Great player, but there were a lot of seasons that he was just hitting .250. And he only won 2 Gold Gloves, by the way. Derek Jeter has 5, for whatever it's worth. So, in the debate, who was the better fielder, Jeter versus Ripken, the answer is Jeter. Jim Palmer won 3 World Series for the Orioles, was the ace of 2 of those staffs. My father saw him pitch in an All-Star game at Yankee Stadium, where he lost the game in, I think it was the first inning. Yeah, 1977, he gave up 4 runs in the first inning. He actually gave up 5 runs in 2 innings in total in that game, because he came out for the 3rd inning, faced 1 batter, and that batter obviously scored it was Steve Garvey who hit a home run. I understand it's not really that important, it's just an interesting anecdote. Brooks Robinson is probably the best fielding third baseman in baseball history. He has over 2,800 hits, all with the Baltimore Orioles. There are some people that will put Frank Robinson ahead of Brooks. Was Frank Robinson a better hitter than Brooks? The answer is yes. But Frank Robinson spent a lot of time with the Reds. He spent a lot of time with the Indians. And I couldn't put him on the Mount Rushmore for the Orioles because of that. He only played 6 years for the Orioles. Sorry, Brooks gets on the Mount Rushmore. Frank doesn't. And Dave McNally was the second best pitcher on 2 World Series winning teams, 1966 and 1970. It's a shame that he wasn't a lifetime Oriole. He finished his career with the 1975 Montreal Expos. We don't remember McNally as fondly as we should. Yes, he was overshadowed by Jim Palmer. We all know that. But he was an excellent playoff pitcher. In the postseason, he was 7-4 with a 2.49 ERA. And in the World Series, he was 4-2 with a 2.34 ERA. In the 2 World Series that the Orioles won, he was 2-0. Was great in those 3 starts. He started an extra game in 1966. Game 1, he just only went 3 innings. What happened was he walked the bases loaded, and he was pulled for Mo Drabowski. Drabowski was able to work out of the gym. He only allowed 1 run, and the Orioles actually won that game 5-2. The point is, Dave McNally was a great postseason pitcher and isn't remembered as fondly as he should be outside of Baltimore. Tomorrow, I'm going to be breaking down the latest and greatest in sports. You know the drill. You're a good listener. Until then, I am Jacob Valk saying that Candlestick Park was built on the water. It should have been built under it.